The poor lad who comes from nothing but turns his life into something great, a tale frequently topped with a dose of tragedy, is the perfect cliché, though seen more in fiction than reality. Marcel Cerdan, once a child from humble beginnings, was one of the anomalies who grew up to have it all, only for it to be taken from him too soon.
Punches. Another left hook to the jaw, and Graziano almost goes down but doesn't. He takes a right to the body, a left hook to the jaw. Again, Graziano is staggered, and I don't know what's holding him up. He takes the right hand to the body. Zale drives the right hand that grazes the chin. Graziano comes back, fights gamely, but goes down from two left hooks on the jaw. And he's taking the count from referee Paul Cavalier. Graziano just up at the count of 8. He is a very wobbly young man. Zale coming after him again, trying for knockout. Drives a right to the body, a right and a left to the jaw. A left hook to the jaw, right uppercut on the mouth by Zale. A left hook to the jaw, and Graziano gamely fights back with the left hand to the chin. A right to the body, a left hook to the jaw by Zale again. And Graziano is prone on the canvas. And the count is 5, 6, 7, 8. He's not going to make it. 9, 10. He is knocked out, and Tony Zale has regained the middleweight championship of the world.
As Tony Zale put 12-5 favorite Rocky Graziano down and out with a brutal left hook to the jaw, the man of steel propelled himself to the pinnacle of the pugilistic realm for a second time, a feat that seemed highly unlikely at one point. Just 9 days after initially grasping an unequivocal hold on the middleweight championship of the world, the Imperial Japanese Navy launched their assault on Pearl Harbor. The 28-year-old world champion would not return to the prize ring for a meaningful bout in 4 years, as he found himself immersed in disparate battle following his induction to the U.S. Navy. Zale, however, would not be the only combatant to have a greater fight occupying his prime years. Marcel Cerdan began his fistic campaign in 1934, fighting mainly around northern Africa. The French Pied Noir, born in Sidi Bel Abbes, then of French Algeria, racked up an impressive 51 wins to only 1 loss by disqualification en route to his conquest of European welterweight champion and world rank contender Saverio Turiello in June of 1939. A bright future and possible tilt towards the world crown was nearing the horizon for Cerdan. However, a little under 3 months later, Hitler's Nazi Germany would invade Poland, sparking the beginnings of World War II. After 18 months of inactivity, Cerdan returned from war to resurrect his fighting career, albeit against lowly opposition. He disposed of all comers in Central Europe, more often than not in impressive fashion. War was soon to pass, and the Casablanca Clouder would raise his ring legend to anomalous heights. Marcel built a post-war streak of 20 wins, including wins over world-rated Americans Georgie Abrams and Holman Williams, making it 40 bouts since he last saw an opponent's hand raised in victory. July 10, 1948, exactly 1 month to the night since Tony Zale closed the book on his historic rivalry with Rocky Graziano, a packed house was on hand to witness Marcel Cerdan take on Cyril Delanoy for European honors. Perhaps the keenest observer on that night was New York-based promoter Andy Niederreiter, who had Zale under contract for a September defense of his world middleweight title. Before the fight, Niederreiter made it known that Cerdan would take up the role of Zale's foe should he impressively reverse the loss suffered at the hands of Delanoy 7 weeks earlier. Cerdan sent the Belgian to the canvas 4 times in regaining his EBU belt via points decision, at long last setting himself up for a shot at boxing's biggest prize. Terms for a championship bout were soon agreed upon, and the stage was set for September 21, 1948. At the age of 34, Tony Zale was said to be past his prime, yet the champion was coming off of one of his greatest and most impressive career performances, which in turn had oddsmakers comfortably favoring a title retention. The 32-year-old Cerdan entered as a 2-to-1 underdog, but proved from the opening bell why his record of 108 wins to only 3 losses was to be taken seriously. The Frenchman came storming out of the blocks, using his superior movement to bait Zale into committing before avoiding the titleist's assaults and battering him with left hooks and straight rights. Barring a few momentary incidents early on, which saw the champion get the better of his adversary, the fight continued along the path on which it began. Cerdan administered a pummeling for the majority of 11 long rounds, with the conclusion finally arriving at the end of a rasping left hook to the jaw. Zale was out. The streets of Paris were lined with a reported 300,000 admirers of all ages upon Cerdan's return to France. Amongst these, a devotee of a different kind was waiting for her man to return. Earlier that year, Marcel met world-renowned songstress Edith Piaf, which soon led to a love affair. Their relationship would be the talk of the nation and beyond, and would only help in catapulting their individual social statuses even farther. With a title belt around his waist and an influential entertainment figure under his arm, Marcel Cerdan was a genuine superstar. The notoriety that came with the title of world champion would earn Marcel various ventures into the media industry, though boxing was clearly to be his mainstay, as he proved with 2 definitive victories in the 8 months that followed. The first was a 7th-round knockout over British and Commonwealth champion Dick Turpin, older brother of future world titleist Randolph, and it was followed by a 4th-round halting of Lucian Krawczyk. With the sense of being champion well and truly absorbed, Cerdan set out to defend his title. He would face off against a man just as talented and just as feared as Marcel himself, Jake Lamotta. Cerdan traveled to the United States as a 12-5 favorite over his challenger. However, Lamotta was in tip-top shape to ensure he had a shot in what he described as his best chance since he turned pro in 1940. After a postponement due to heavy rainfall, the pair finally met in the ring on the night of June 16th in Detroit. As promised, the Bronx Bull charged out of his corner at the sound of the opening bell, giving his all to try to break his foe. This was epitomized by one such moment in the final seconds of round 1, when Lamotta tossed Cerdan to the floor. The champion would rise, but not without damage, as he had separated his shoulder when attempting to cushion his fall. Although Cerdan would win the 2nd round and have some success until the end of the 5th, Lamotta built a large lead on the scorecards in drubbing the one-armed fighter. As the 9th round came to a close, so too did the fight. Cerdan's cornerman, in compliance with the ringside doctor, stepped in and drew a halt to the contest, in turn handing Lamotta the title belt he so craved for the better portion of a decade. Following the fight, Red Smith of the Associated Press noted, "A master at handling his opponent, turning him, tying him up, slipping or blocking his punches, and setting him up. Cerdan could do none of this one-handed. He couldn't even stick his left out to ward off his foe. It is difficult to believe Lamotta would have a chance with a two-handed Cerdan." The newly crowned champion offered his beaten rival an immediate rematch as an answer to doubts over whether or not Lamotta was really the better man. The return bout was scheduled and eventually rescheduled for December 2nd of 1949. October 27th. Marcel Cerdan set off for New York to meet up with Edith Piaf and conclude the remainder of his training camp. His decision to travel by air a few days earlier than his originally planned boat trip would prove to be a grave error. During an attempted stop-off in the Azores in the early hours of the morning of the 28th, the plane on which he was boarded crashed into a mountain on São Miguel Island. There were no survivors. As news of the incident broke, France and its colonies came to a near standstill. Tributes were paid throughout the sporting realm to the man who was its emperor. A state funeral was held in Marcel's homeland on November 10th, with thousands lining the streets in mourning as he passed through Casablanca for one last time. In the 2 days and nights that followed, crowds continued to flock in order to pay respect to their greatest ever athlete. At a glance, it may seem as though Marcel Cerdan's fighting career was a flash in the pan, a small flame in boxing's wildfire. In reality, the Frenchman made a significant dent in the history books and should be spoken of in fondness alongside the rest of the middleweight elite.